Welcome to the Fulfilling the Mission podcast. I'm Brandon Isle, and in this podcast, we're so excited to talk about the mission of BYU-Idaho, which is to help build disciples of Jesus Christ who are leaders in their homes, in their communities, and in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And we get to talk to teachers and students in all of the departments and colleges on campus. And today, we're lucky to have Brother Daren Nelson. He's a faculty member in the Department of Geology and Environmental Science, and Abby Guy, who is from Arizona and a senior who is studying geology. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
This department is so cool, and I wanted to just kind of start broadly, and then we can kind of dig into your backgrounds and what majors you have to offer.
Mm-hmm.
But let's start there with the majors. So I know there are three majors that the department offers. Can you tell me about those?
Yes, we have the geology major, and then we have an environmental geoscience major, and then we also have the geoeducation major. So, and we also have some the GIS certificate and then some minors.
Yeah, and that's a big deal. Certificates, we're focusing more on those to get students in, get some training so they can get jobs. And that's
and GIS is very, very work related. It's a skill that all of our majors, if they didn't have, they probably wouldn't get hired. It's something that they absolutely need to have. So.
Yeah. So these three majors and certificate, students coming in, they get to choose those, but I'm assuming there's some classes that they start with to kind of get them oriented. What is that orientation, those kind of first classes like to help them understand?
So it depends on what they want to do. With the geology degree is a little bit more technical, and so that we ask them to try to come up with some math background and things like that to be able to work on them. But really the intro class that they have to take is what we call Geology 111. It's introductory to physical geology for the geologists. It's a pretty intense class for a lot of students. It kind of gets them to understand what we do, what jobs are out there in geology, and try to get them to understand how important it is for us to monitor Earth's like resources and things like that. And so that's where really the major course for that one. It's kind of gets them into the front door and gets them excited about stuff. And so, whereas the environmental geoscience one is a little bit different. It's a little bit more broad kind of one. So we actually work with the students do have courses within biology, within geology, and some other colleges as well, because it's a little bit more of a interdisciplinary kind of degree, because they can get jobs in the geosciences or even as an environmental conservationist or something like that, doing stream ecology or something of that nature. So it's kind of a more broad kind of stuff. So they also start off with 111 as well to kind of get them in the door, and then we go from there. So
yeah, cool. Abby, do you remember taking that 111 class?
I do,
and why did you go, this is for me?
So I don't know if I'm the most typical for that. I've always wanted to do geology. I've loved rocks as long as I can remember. But 111 is your first, you start learning how to identify minerals, what these are. You start learning Mohs hardness scale. That's a classic. You start learning all the plate boundaries and the physical characteristics of the Earth as a whole. And then continuing from there, you dive deep in, really. And 112, I'd also consider one of the...
Yeah, it's one of the introductory ones as well.
It's our historical geology. Okay. So you learn a lot about fossils and timing and just kind of get a handle on because geology is really about time a lot. And when we say, it's a long time in geology, you talk millions of years. So it's really helping you learn okay, a process, we might say it happens fast, but when we say fast, we mean 10,000 years, 20,000 years.
Yeah, a lot different than I think a lot of us think about in our classes being faster. So
yeah, we often need to have students to think about deep time, right? It's a change in perspective, and then our students also have to think spatially as well. So they're thinking about things in 3 dimensions and also, in reality, 4 dimensions, right? Because they have to think about what the Earth looked like at this time frame, and when did it happen, all the processes that occurred then, the organisms that lived at that time, to help them understand what the Earth was like, and then we can then use those tools to help us understand what resources are there, or what the foundation for buildings are and things like that. So we help us understand some of the geological concepts. We understand the past. We always say it's the present the past is the key to the present in a sense, right? So we can actually predict things in the future because of that.
Yeah, and some of those things you're predicting, like you're not just studying rocks to study rocks. Like this is important work, from hydrology to mining to things that we're using every day. Can you talk a little bit about some of the disciplines within?
Well, yeah. So, I mean, one of the big disciplines in ours is paleoclimatology. So we actually are some of the researchers who are looking at paleoclimate records to help us understand future climate and climate change, to see that. Because I mean, if you look at climate, it's a 30-year average, and so we have to look at these long time periods to see what past patterns were, right? And so those are some of the things. There's other subfields that we work with. I always use the adage, and I teach an environmental geology class, and I always use the adage: if it's not grown, it's mined, because every single thing we own comes from the earth, and we need to actually be good stewards of it, right? I mean, President Nelson tells us that we need to be good stewards. And we need to take care of this earth. And so we, in our department, are trying to teach students to still get the resources that we need to have green energy, to have these be more sustainable, but yet do it responsibly, right? And so that's part of what we were trying to get students to do, is to be able to understand, how does geology and understanding of geology impact each of us? And how does, if we build a building here, is the foundation going to be actually stable enough to put that building there, right? For example, when the Teton Temple was here, they actually had to do an analysis of the ground to see what was going on, and it actually was postponed a little bit because the groundwater was too high.
Oh. Yeah, the groundwater is super high.
And so they had to change the way they actually did the construction based off of that analysis from geotechnicians who came in and actually analyzed the site. And so those kind of things are things that you don't ever see, as most humans on there. This building was put here, but how was it built, and why was it built that way? And the geoscientists are really the ones there to help the engineers and help the construction management individuals, all those individuals, to be able to understand what they need to do to make it safe for them.
Yeah, and that's just one aspect of it.
Yeah, there's a lot of different aspects.
Going to.
No, in mining, I'm in water, or going into water, I guess I should say. I haven't graduated yet. But I mean, like you said, if it's not grown, it's mined. We mine all our water, especially here in Idaho and most places in the world. Most of your water supply comes from the ground. And most people think, I think aquifer, I think big lake underground, right? But really, it's just a ton of sediments, so there's like loose bits with water in between. And you got to figure out where is that, and how, if you're going to build on it, how's that going to affect it? How's it going to change?
Yeah, I mean, and especially in light of our current water supply problems here in the state of Idaho, right? I'm also have a hydrology background, and just trying to help individuals understand that, hey, if I draw water from here, that's going to impact my people down the road, and can we play nicely here, right? Okay, and to be able, but that impacts a lot of people's well-being and bottom dollar, right? So if we have to shut down wells all throughout this area, that's going to have a huge environmental impact, but also economic impact. And so, but law, and we have to have this integration of the science with the law and the policy to be able to mesh that all together and try to do it responsibly, right? And that's one of the big things that I always encourage students to do, is we need more of our scientists in policy and law, to actually try to get the science within the policy, because sometimes they're often disconnected.
Well, laws can become very emotional.
Yes.
Yeah.
People say, I need a thing, let's make a law. And without the science, it just won't make sense.
Yeah, and we have laws like that already in the state. I mean, they used to have groundwater and surface water separated. They would have separate laws, actually, go for groundwater use versus surface water use, and they're realizing that they're interconnected, and we have to treat them that way. And that's the same thing with mining or oil or gas or any kind of resource, is that there is an environmental aspect of it, there's a community, social aspect of it, and that's the whole idea of what we call sustainability, right? Where it's that integration of social, economic, and scientific background that we have to mesh together to get that sweet spot, to be able to do it, to be those good stewards that we can.
Yeah. Well, it's so fascinating to talk about this because the students, you're in the classroom a little bit, but like there are labs and then internships and capstone projects. Can you tell me about some of the opportunities students have to do this hands-on learning in the department?
I'll let Abby do that.
Yeah,
So
what are
she's
you
she's
doing
kind of
right
in
now?
it right now.
I would say for the start, we do a lot of field trips, right? Like the last few weeks, I did 3 field trips.
Wow.
And so depending on what class you're in, you either do like a 1 day, or you can go up to 2 days and have some of the higher levels, and other ones you have 3-day field trips. So you go out in the field to actually see things. We went to Moab just because it was for a sedimentology class, and that's a really good place for that. Or I know for historical geology, they go out to a fossil mound, they go look at fossils and all these things. And it's really a great way to quote Dr. Clayton, get your boots on the ground.
Yeah.
You go out and you can actually see what you're trying to talk about in class, because I mean, it's really great to know that Idaho's a basalt, right? But it's fantastic to go out and see all this thing in the actual place it's placed in, and just see what the processes look like on a grand scale. Because geology is not a classroom-sized science. Geology is large scale. Geology is, I drove 60 miles and it was all still the Book Cliffs, which are crazy deposition area. Don't worry about it. But
It's like I could talk about rocks forever.
But more specifically, what I think what Dr. Nelson was getting at is that I have field camp, which we call like kind of our capstone, basically. So it's 7 to 8 weeks.
It's 7 to 8 weeks.
7 to 8 weeks, and we go out in the field and you apply everything you've learned. We'll do mapping, we'll do fossil assemblages, we're going to look at, can you tell what structures these are? Can you say, what do you think the ages are? Because in geology, just because things on top of something doesn't mean it's older. It could be lying to you. So we're just basically applying everything we've used and learned in class in the actual field. We'll produce maps, we have presentations. I believe our final product is like a history of a specific area, or at least for every teacher, they teach different weeks, you'll have different deliverables. And we'll use GIS. We'll have our little field maps, which is kind of like a app you can
digital
map
mapping
things in.
tool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're really getting your hands dirty. You're doing the stuff to help you get a job. What kind of jobs are students looking for as they go through this?
So it just depends on what subfield the student wants to go in. I mean, we have students going into oil, gas, mining. And when we say oil, gas, mining, that's not just from the extraction, but that's also the environmental cleanup of that as well, because they have to assess acid mine drainage and water quality issues and spills and things like that. So you'll work for lots of times state government agencies. You can be working for probably about 26% of the market is just actually environmental consulting firms. That's what she's doing right now. She's actually working for an environmental consulting firm. And so a lot of them do that, and then there's a lot of different agencies and stuff like that. We can go from there, but we're talking. It really goes down to hazard mitigation, looking at what's the geological assessment of this property? What's the environmental impact of this property? Is there any contamination there? And do we have to clean it up? So it's a wide spectrum of things that they could do, right? I know students come in there like, well, it's just rocks, right? But there's so much more to it than that. I mean, I know a good friend of mine. We went to school together, and he's now a doctor. And he actually focuses on how arsenic and mercury actually impact individuals, but it's from his geology background that he got all of that, and now he's specializing in something else. So it's a really good way to branch off into other careers as well, or just stay within the geosciences themselves.
Because it does give you a really broad base. Like I've had to take physics, I've had to take chemistry, I've had to take advanced math classes. You have to take, of course, the humanities and everything, but you get a really just broad look at most of the sciences, because all of them come together to create the Earth, because you can't have the Earth without physics or chemistry or anything.
Yeah.
So
it's a very multidisciplinary field.
Well, I wanted to talk about your background a little bit, because you started with your education in geology,
yes,
and then moved on to hydrology.
Correct.
And got to work with water a little bit in your career, and then you've bounced around the country teaching at various places and have returned to BYU-Idaho. Absolutely. And do you think that background helps you teach the students? Just what's available?
I think it does. I'm actually originally from here in Rexburg. I actually was born the year of the flood.
Oh, wow.
Tells you might tell your audience how old I am, but that's what really got me excited about it. I mean, I would hear stories from my parents and what happened with the flood and how their house got destroyed and all those kind of things, and that's what got me excited. And I had an awesome scoutmaster who took us everywhere and just. I loved the earth. I loved being outside, and so that kind of got me there. And then I actually started off in education. I started off in elementary education, and then decided I needed students who actually talked back to me and not in a yelling fashion. So we changed over time, and I ended up like, you know what? I think college would be awesome, and so I started actually going out in the industry first. I wanted to get some background, and because I felt that would give me experience that would help then the students, right? So I did consulting for a couple years here in Idaho, worked for a Water Research Institute group here in Idaho, and also worked for the INL for a little while. And so all within just small little like graduate fellowships when I was getting my graduate degree, kind of working on that. And after my graduate degree, I worked as a consultant for a while. After that, I'm like, you know what? I'm done with consulting. I want to go back to school. I want to get back my PhD, and went to the University of Utah. I got my PhD, and then from there I started teaching. I mean, there was a position available here, so I was back here in 2009 to 2011. It was just a 3-year hire, and decided to move on for a little bit, and then kind of came full circle, right? And so to come back here, and I've loved it here since. This is actually my first year back, so it's been pretty good, and I love the students, and it's great.
Yeah. Well, Abby, as you've had classes from different teachers, how's their experience help influence you and the direction you're going?
I think it's been really great to see the passion, because every teacher I have is very passionate about their subject. Like, Dr. Showbloom, like our department chair, she's a volcanologist, and she loves it. She's so passionate about everything. Like every class, if there's something somewhere erupting, she'll put it up on the screen like, look, it's erupting, I'm so happy. She'll send out announcements with the links. Or Dr. Well, she recently retired, but she's one of my favorite teachers. No, sorry.
That's okay. It's okay. I understand.
Give him time.
Give him a bit, yeah. But they're also passionate, and they love to bring that into the classroom. So what I love about geology is everyone I know who does geology loves it so much and is just so passionate about it.
Yeah. That passion is so important in so many ways, and I think it comes out in like societies and some of the other things that the students are able to do. Can you tell me about the opportunities that students in this department can receive from the societies? So I know you're a TA and some other things. What's available, and how have you participated?
Well, I know they have the Geology Society, so that one's we actually just had our closing social. They're super fun. And so we're actually a super tight-knit department as well, because we are kind of small, but everyone is super good friends because you take all the same classes together, then you end up going to like field trip and field camp and all that stuff. But they do hikes, we go look at rocks, we have a rock show and tell, which is really fun. Or the best activity we do is Bad Geology Night. Bad Geology movie night, sorry. So we'll pick a movie that like has geology as like a natural disaster, and we'll just laugh at it.
So like 2012.
2020, yeah, 2020.
What is it, the core?
The core is terrible.
The core is so funny.
So, but anyways, they have fun, and they are a really tight-knit group. That's one thing about just not our department, but any geology department I've really been in, they usually tend to be because we spend a lot of time out in the field together. Yeah. And so we get to know each other really well, and kind of collaborate together very well, and it's something that might not be the same in like maybe a math class or something like that. Like, 'cause we still have those study groups, but we also are outside talking around a campfire and learning life experiences.
Each other very deeper.
Yeah,
deeper
absolutely.
Level.
Even in class, you're sitting here like, oh my gosh, you're looking at this rock, and you could swear this rock looks like all the other rocks you just looked at, but you're staring at it with your hand lens and your acid, and you're just like, what do you guys think this is? And you're all just can't. It's
I'm glad you struggle with that
together.
too. I really struggle with that when I take I'm colorblind too, so I see
no, Dr.
rocks.
Sheldon
I'm
always says
they are the same.
every teacher I've ever had says never rely on color.
Yeah, color's one of the
So-
worst ways to do
Well,
it.
that makes me feel better. Then.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's a pretty tight area. Our department, actually, our geology department, is one of the larger of undergraduate departments. We have a small faculty group, but we have quite a bit of students. Now, geology is traditionally is kind of a smaller department anyway. So,
Right.
so we have currently around about 200 students declared in our major, about 160 something like that enrolled. It moves around all the time,
Sure.
right? But the thing is it's if you compare it to us to other ones, we're one of the largest in the West.
Really?
Yeah, and so I mean, if you look at BYU, they're and I'm not saying anything. They have a great program, but they only have about 40, 50 undergraduates.
Wow.
Most of them are graduate students, right? And then, so they focus more on that. And so what's nice about our department is because we have just undergraduates, us as faculty can really focus on good instruction for them and give them research or internship opportunities and stuff like that. So, for example, one of my students is now just signed up to do an internship with the water districts around here.
Oh, cool.
To actually look at recharge basins
Yeah.
and to see how recharge basins are influencing the local aquifer.
Yeah.
And he's doing that with me as his mentor, and then with the groundwater districts to kind of try to help us kind of get our minds around how much water we might need to be putting into it, and if the water that we're putting into the aquifer are potentially contaminating the aquifer. Because often surface water has stuff that's gone over fields and stuff like that, E. coli and stuff like that, but E. coli doesn't grow in underground because it needs sunlight. So we'll go down there and take samples from other wells around and see if it's actually being contaminated and stuff like that. But what's so cool about that is the students can have these personal experiences, right? They almost every single one of our classes have one or two TAs associated with it. When I went to school, I never had that opportunity. And they come out of the degree with so much more experience because they've taught it to others, right? Instead of just, I mean, if you think about the learning model, right? They're teaching other people,
Yeah.
and almost every one of our students get that opportunity at some point to be a teaching assistant, and to be able to really deep down and like dig deep into something and teach it is so much different than them just being on the other end. And so our students tend to do really well in graduate school and other things like that because of that experience, whereas other schools, they don't get those same experiences. And so it's really nice to have them.
Are you noticing that graduate schools and businesses or governments or whatever are coming to BYU-Idaho to recruit our students for internships?
In some ways, yes. I would say in some ways, yes, in some ways, not. It depends on the way, because we are limited about the number of classes we can actually take here at BYU-Idaho. So sometimes it's harder because they don't have as much
Additional geology classes.
additional diversity, right, as they might in another university, which is not bad because they still get the religion aspect and things like that. But we have had employers say, hey, we trust your students, right? And so because of their moral backgrounds and ethics and stuff like that, they tend to trust them more. And also the grad students that we usually do have tend to be really successful, because they've already had some of those research experiences, or they've already had some of those teaching experiences. So they tend to be, BYU often gets a lot of our grad students who are going there. We have 4 or 5 there right now. Utah State's another one. There's some other local ones that do as well. But we probably have about 25 to 30% of our students go on to grad school. In the geosciences, we always say that the master's degree is the more employable degree,
Right.
because that's where they make the good money.
Yeah.
So now you can absolutely still get a job at a bachelor's level, and it's still okay money, but they get their career projection like skyrockets when they start getting a master's
It's that
degree.
ability to sign off on reports.
It almost doubles sometimes.
Wow.
So it
Yeah.
depends on what field they're going into, but it can sometimes even double. So
Yeah.
so that's why we say that the master's is really the more employable degree for them.
Abby, is that what you're looking to do, is
Yeah.
graduate school?
So I've done my internship / I guess I'm currently still doing it. So I plan to work there after I graduate. But I plan to get my master's just because as he said, it's just more convenient and it's a lot more effective for your workplace, because as a master's you can sign off on certain things that you couldn't really. I mean, you have to get the PG, the professional geologist.
Yeah, we have to get
license,
they have to get certificates and do that, and we try to encourage them to do that. But it's not required for some fields, but some it is.
But the master's is definitely the working degree, from what I can tell.
Yeah. Now, before we were recording, we were talking about one of the other experiences students can get, and that's with drones. You have a drone society, and this is such a big part of so many jobs now. I mean, it's just exploding. Can you tell me about some of the experiences students can have with that?
Yeah, so I'm one of the co-mentors for the Drone Society. We have two mentors because our GIS, which is Geographical Information Systems. I don't know if we've ever said that. It's basically digital mapping in a sense. It's really kind of understanding how we look at things from satellite photos and from mapping sense. I mean, if you've ever used Google Maps, that's a GIS, right? Okay, it's a geographical information system, and so we are teaching students how to use those. And drones are a significant part of that because we can get imagery, we can get and 3D models and stuff like that, all from those drones. So we have a fleet of different drones in our department. We have a thermal drone, we have multispectral drones, and then we also have LiDAR, okay, and then just normal RGB kind of drones that anybody else would fly.
Yeah, right? So these drones are going beyond just pictures or video from above. It's seeing so many other aspects.
Yeah, we're looking at different spectrums of the electromagnetic spectrum, right? Okay, so like the thermal, we'll look at the thermal kind of radiance coming back, and then or multispectral, we'll look at how the plants or the ground absorbs that light, okay, and then bounce back to the sensor and go from there. Or LiDAR, which actually kind of is pointing a laser down to see the exact elevation of the ground. So we can get really good digital elevation models of the ground and try to do some analysis of that, like how often like maybe an earthquake actually ruptures and see the offset, or look at landslides and how they've changed over time and stuff like that. So there's a lot of ways we can use it. I've used drones before in some of my research. I've used both multispectral, just normal drones, and also thermal drones. One example is I actually use it for water resources. And we look at how groundwater and surface water interact with one another. And when groundwater comes up into a stream, sometimes it's warmer than the surface body water, and we can see those plumes coming in. And so we can actually see where groundwater is seeping into the stream based off of the temperature differences. So we've done that in a couple places around here, but I've done most of that research down in Utah with good success. And then from there we can say, okay, well, this stretch of the river is actually gaining water. Now we can measure it to see how much it's gaining, right? Now the drones just help us say, oh, it's gaining, but we can't actually do an analysis about how much it is. There are some cool methods out there that are changing that, but it's a very up and coming field. And there's a lot of demand in the use of drones in the sciences and in industry right now, and so it's pretty sought after kind of. We have drone class, we have remote sensing classes that she's currently in right now.
Took the final 4 yesterday.
But anyways, and so that really kind of help us to utilize that satellite data or in this case drone data, to be able to really look deep dive into the different characteristics of the land and surface.
Yeah, there are so many aspects, technical aspects of these majors and these classes, but how do you bring the spirit into the classroom, and how have you experienced that with?
I'm gonna let Abby do that one for a second, then I'll talk afterwards. But
I think most of it's been just like a deeper appreciation for the planet God's made for us. Like, I know Dr. Allred, he always talks every class. We go over what we learned in devotional, what we thought was important. Dr. Nelson actually will take quotes. I actually really appreciate this. He'll take quotes and he'll like make them look pretty. You know how they do like the different fonts and they look really nice, like they give you those little printout cards. Or
you don't know, I just get those online. Don't you?
Keep the dream alive.
Don't ruin the magic.
Or I loved Dr. Willis would always say, okay guys, what was something in nature that just made you feel the spirit today or since we last met or something like that. So it's always very well put in, like, okay, we can just see how God has put such care into creating what we have, and he's given us so much and we need to take care of it.
Yeah. And do you find experiences like on your field trips and especially the overnight ones where you're sitting around a campfire, are you having these conversations about God and nature and these things?
We do devotionals a lot when we have the overnight ones, and those are a good time. Although sometimes, it's not fire, it's just darkness.
Oh, yeah.
So that's actually kind of fun to get, everyone's just singing in the dark. It's a good time.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
So if you think about it, back in 2021, Bishop Kaze actually did a talk in General Conference about how it's important is for us to be environmental stewards, and that it's a spiritual responsibility, right? And so we try to really emphasize that in our classes, and how important it is for us to say, here, these are God's creations, and we need to treat them with respect. And we need to actually utilize them. In D&C 104, it basically tells us, right, that we are stewards, but we don't use it just to waste it, in a sense. We use it to actually for the good of man and good for the environment and those around us, right? And so we have to use it wisely. And so those, and even we had Jenica Sedgwick. She's the sustainability coordinator for the entire church. She came to campus last semester, and we invited her to here to talk to our students, and invited lots of other people to come as well. And she was talking about that the mission of the church is actually from President Nelson's talk, The Creation. I think it was back, I can't remember the date. It was back in when it was done, but he basically says that we have a responsibility for this earth. It's his creations, and we need to be stewards of it, okay, and of the people that live on it.
Yeah.
And so we can't just waste it, contaminate it, and cause disease and poverty to people down the road. The way we treat our planet connects us with everybody around us. And so we need to make sure we understand that these are God's creations, and we need to appreciate them.
Thank you. Well, last question for both of you, and I'll start with Abby, but how is the Department of Geology and Environmental Science fulfilling the mission of BYU-Idaho? Go ahead.
I think it's, especially since what we want to send disciple leaders out, right? And like Dr. Nelson was talking about, most students get a chance to be TAs, and it really helps you learn to love different people, and like, especially because like as a TA in the geology department, you don't just help the teacher, you're actually also the tutor. We don't have like tutors, so you're TA, you tutor, and you grade, and you can see how people try so hard, and you like, it's only through the grace of God that I'm able to do this and you're able to get this done. And it's just really awesome to be able to see your fellow students grow and learn.
Yeah, thank you.
I would say that, I mean, you think about it, we really try to get them connected with industry and with other people around it, because we want them to go out and actually be examples of Christ in wherever they go, in whatever they do. They might be just a stay-at-home mom working on doing GIS remotely or whatever they're doing, but hopefully they do it with strong ethics and strong moral values. They're actually seeing the earth as what it is and then treating it respectively, right? And by doing that, they can then be leaders, right? So I'm hoping that they can go and change policies, change laws, and make the world a better place for everybody involved within it, right? And that's what we're really trying to do it. But at the same time, be compassionate and help them, because it's not an easy subject. I mean, it can be very rewarding, but it's also sometimes challenging. And so we have to kind of be on that balance of trying to assist the student, but also to help them see their worth as an individual. And geology might not be it. It may be somewhere else, and so we have to kind of help them to guide them through that path.
Yeah.
I will say the teachers are highly supportive. I know I can go talk to any of my teachers, and they will help me get through their problem, be it scheduling, be it classes, be it the specific subject. They'll help you work through it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Abby Guy and Daren Nelson. It's been a pleasure having you here today.
Well, thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, thanks.